Good evening and welcome to Blue Tinted Glasses, and this is the Match Analysis Show, Tuesday Night Tactics. I'm joined by the Bonnie to my Clyde, or is it the other way around? It's Andreas, LCFC Duck. How are you doing tonight on this fine day? I'm wearing my glasses because we actually won a game.
Yeah, I mean, it is brilliant, right? To be sitting here analyzing a win. We didn't do it for the QVR game. You mentioned, obviously, Casper the Ghost taking up most of the field, right? So hard to do analysis there. That means the last time we analyzed a win, you and me, that was back at the West Ham game. We just got Ruud in charge. So it's brilliant finally to talk about some tactical tweaks and changes he has made that has worked out. And, getting to analyze some goals for once as well. It's not often we do that on the show anymore because we don't score that much.
Exactly. Well, evening to everyone. Clibo, Kunal, and Hamza, good to see you here. Let's sit back, get yourself a nice drink, and let's enjoy looking at a Leicester City win. Yes, it actually happened. Spoilers, I actually think this was more of Spurs beating themselves rather than us beating them, but you can only beat who's in front of you, and we did beat them. Taking a look just at the stats. So actually, what's nice about this is I would say the stats actually confirm that we were the better team. So this is not a smash and grab. Maybe we were defensive at the end, but to be honest with you, we were all very nervous watching this game. But I have to be honest, if you look back at the game, Spurs really didn't look they were going to score. I actually think we could have played another half an hour and they wouldn't have scored. And I'm actually a bit disappointed that we didn't get the third because I feel like we could have done that if we were a bit more ambitious. But I think given the situation, it's there to understand. We just needed the result and we got it. Talking about the lineup, very interesting because, as we see in the picture here, Bobby de Cordova-Reid came back into the team instead of Steffi Mavididi. We're going to touch on him a little bit later. He had a pretty good game. Ruud went for Jordan Ayew instead of Facundo Buonanotte, and I think that's something that we will talk about. But I've also got a little section on Jordan Ayew, who I think showed that his dark arts of the game were particularly good in this one, which I think were important to helping us see out the result.
Right, to get in on the lineup. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first start for de Cordova-Reid as well since the Tottenham game at the beginning of the season. He started that first game, I remember, and did have some all right moments outside. I mean, it was glimmers in what was a pretty disappointing performance all around from him, to be honest. But yeah, I think a lot of people didn't like this lineup. There was certainly a lot of bad words being said on Twitter about Ruud and the boys showing up. But I'm gonna be honest, not to say that I agreed, but I respected the balls that Ruud had, because quite clearly we weren't scoring enough. We weren't creating enough big chances. So something had to change up in attack. And I mean, while it isn't, names that breed confidence in the team sheet, de Cordova-Reid and Jordan Ayew, I think it was a bold but smart move and it paid off,
Yeah, ultimately those selections were justified, but I'm going to ask you about that in a second. So do keep this team lineup in your mind. Bobby Reid did actually play in the second game as well against Fulham, but after that he came out of the team. He wasn't so good in that one. But yeah, on tonight's show, so what I'm going to do a bit differently is normally I just sort of go through the game sort of first half to second half, but I don't really like that format because I don't think it really gives you the cutting edge analysis that the blue tinted glasses family deserve. So we're going to do it a bit differently, and I'm going to give you the topics of discussion. So here are going to be the main points we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about Jakub Stolarczyk and Spurs targeting us with crosses, because that's a tactic that they went for. Why did they go for that tactic and how effective was it? We're going to talk about Bouba Soumare's emergence as a key player. Spoilers, I was pretty disappointed with chat's match rating for Bouba Soumare. On the watch back, he is absolutely incredible. So we're going to cover why he was incredible and why him coming into the team is really a good thing for Leicester. We're also going to talk about Spurs' insane high line and how a certain Moroccan magician exploited that. We're also going to talk about a lack of threat on transition. This is something that I've been saying for a while, and I think it's the thing that if we could improve would actually turn us from a team battling to stay in the league to someone being half decent. And we're also going to talk about the resolve to see out a game and using the dark arts, and that is going to feature Jordan Ayew. Terence, do we think this lineup will beat Everton? We'll come to that at the end. I hope you don't mind, but we're going to go through the tactics first. But I think that's a very good question that we can touch upon later. So just before talking about our points, I think this is really important to understand about going into this game. So we were up against Ange Postecoglou, and what's kind of interesting about Ange is that his tactics before you're going into the game, right? For good or for worse, I would say worse. If you're a Spurs fan, you know what he's going to do. And what is he going to do? Well, here was his lineup, but you can see the sort of team here. Now, we know that they were ravaged by injuries and they actually lost Maddison coming into this game, which of course is a blow. But you look at that front three, and that front three actually costs, I think, about £150 million. So it's not like they're sort of cheap up front. But their tactic when they're in possession is to do this, which is very interesting. So what happens is Archie Gray and Pedro Porro, who start at left back and right back, they actually invert into becoming an attacking midfielder. So they have this crazy shape. As Manny would call it, it's a reverse Christmas tree. Now, what is this system all about? By inverting both the fullbacks, right, you're swarming the opposition. It makes it much easier for Spurs to find the free man in our third when we're defending, because they've got so many men forwards, right? Which means that they're going to score goals. And Spurs, this is crazy, even though they're 15th, they're the third highest scorers in the Premier League. But the disadvantage of playing this system is this. So I'm going to ask you, Doug, just going into this, before we actually show the actual tactics that Ruud used in this match, when you're playing a system like this, the areas that I've marked in red, literally, they don't have any coverage. So going into this game, and this is why I was asking you about the team selection, how do you think you would exploit something like this if you were playing Football Manager?
It screams you want someone with pace, right, on the counter to get the ball and let them sprint into the acres of space behind them. And I mean, Jordan Ayew and Dico Reed, not the fastest wingers we have at the club, even with the injury situation. This to me screamed like a game where Mavidi could potentially have a field day, but I mean, yeah, he didn't even end up getting on the pitch.
You took the words out of my mouth. So very interesting. That's the choice that I would have done as well. I would have gone for some fast players, knowing that there were gaps there. And in fact, Everton, who were 3-0 up at half-time against Spurs, admittedly they were at Goodison Park, that's the tactic they used. But Ruud decided to do something different. But you have to give him a lot of credit. The thing that he decided to do instead actually worked. So we're going to come to that in a moment. But that was interesting. We know what they were going to play, and therefore you can adjust your system. But despite the idea that pace would be good against them, we not only didn't start Daka, but we took Mavidi out of the team. Very interesting. So let's start with Jakub Stolarczyk and Spurs targets with crosses. So here we go. Jakub. So what was interesting is coming into this game, Spurs actually made more crosses against us than in any game for, I think, the last year and a half that they played, which is very interesting. They also put Richarlison up front, which maybe might be one reason. But here's the reason why I think they might also have done this. So I was looking at the stats, and this actually surprised me, and I think this is pretty poor, actually. We've got Wout Faes and Yannick Vestergaard here, and what you can see is their stats in terms of defending. You can see that, wow, actually for blocks and clearances is pretty good. Yannick for clearances is pretty good. You can see, unsurprisingly, Vestergaard's passing stats are actually really, really good for a defender. This is sort of Man City standard. But something that surprised me is you can look at, in terms of the aerials won, they actually both rank quite low, which is surprising because the few times that I've seen teams trying to target with crosses, I don't think it's been that effective, but the stats say different. And we've actually seen that in future games as well. So we're going to come back to this screenshot as well. And I've said this before, that this is actually, I don't think this is on the players. And when I show you this a little bit later, I think I'm going to have further evidence for this. But the point is that we have conceded 2 goals against Fulham last week. And how? It's because they went for a cross, and they went for a cross to the back post where there was a free man who could either score or pass the ball across. So that's what I think they might have looked at coming into this game. And that's how they thought they were going to target us. So here's some sort of early parts of the game, and you can see sort of trying this. So here you can see got Pedro Porro about to take this set piece, and you have to say his delivery is pretty good. So he's put it in, and it's come to, well, it's going to a scramble, and this time Stolarczyk, he punches it away. However, who's he going to punch it to? There's obviously a bit of a worrying player as Spurs of this guy. Heung-min Son has obviously been one of the best wingers in the division for a long time. I don't think he's as good as he used to be, unsurprisingly. But here again, so this is actually the attempt where he ends up going for like a shot, a shot stroke cross. I don't think he was shooting, but Jakub was forced into the save. But I think you can see here with the player with his hands raised what they're actually trying to do. So that's Kulusevski, I believe. And they're trying to target that man who's going to be free. And look at his position. And again, I mentioned this many times, that the way that we defend structurally, there always seems to be a free man on the back post. So here we go for Son. You can see, look, there's still a free man there. Right, and that's what I believe he's trying to do, is to bend the cross into that. But he sort of mishits it, and it means that Stolarczyk actually has to handle it over the bar. So what I am saying is there were warnings. And as it would happen, he's palmed it away. but Spurs end up recovering possession because they put so many men forward. It comes out to one of their players. They play an 1-2. They're going to go for a crosser here. And well, look again. Can you see? Look at the back post. Another free man, right? And again, you can see where Jordan is. That's because we're playing a compact 4-4-2. But again, it's showing you the potential threat. And this time around, I think this is poor as well, is that we've got two men on Richarlison. And he actually managed to get... Oh, it's not Richarlison, sorry. I know actually who this is. 33's pushed in. So this one of the attackers. Oh, actually, Gray perhaps. Anyway, they've made a header. And okay, this time it's gone wide. But this is concerning me, Doug, because this is showing, and obviously we conceded off a cross, that I don't think we're that well set up structurally on the defense to defend corners. Now, what's interesting is I was looking at the stats, and you can actually see that JJ, in terms of aerials one, he's ranking really, really high, right? Which is maybe why he's coming into the middle to help out. But that's making us weaker on the back post. And so this is leading me to the Spurs goal, right? So here they're going to go for a cross-field ball. Archie Gray's going to go to the opposite winger. Actually, we try and deal with it. Christiansen's going to head it away. That's okay. Now, here's, I think, maybe where having Bobby Reid in the team, there's pros and cons. I think overall he had a good game. 2 assists, you've got to say that's very good. But here you can see that he's not physically the strongest. And I don't think he's that good at dealing with a press. And I do wonder if this was Mavadidi, would he do a bit better here? So in the end, he gets sandwiched between the two. Yeah, exactly from Larry here. Bobby Cordova and Christensen were struggling first half to deal with their right-hand side. 100% agree. That's something they struggled with. And what I'm suggesting is that I think it could be the physicality. Like the Premier League over the last few seasons has definitely evolved into something, a very physical kind of endeavor. So because of this, Spurs managed to win the ball back. Now here's another sort of 50-50. And again, this sort of comes down to the physicality. Now again, you're 2 against 1. But I feel like here's one where you've just got to like clatter. You've got to try and win the ball. Like the winners is really going to make a big difference. Why does it make a big difference? Well, because if you did win the ball here, Christensen, just to put it out there, look at the massive gap here that we
plenty of space to utilize.
Yeah, but instead, Spurs get the ball. They manipulate it well, very well. It goes out now to Pedro Porro. Porro's going to swing in the cross. And see, again, do you remember that picture that I showed you against Fulham? So again, you can see you've got the compact 4-4-2, but Justin has come in for Richarlison. But that means that Son is completely free on the back post. And of course, Fass, as is typical with him, he makes one mistake a game, is sleeping. You can see Ayew here. Now, the reason I brought that image up, so here's the Fulham one again. And can you see... This is my point. The players are different. The side is different, but the problem is the same. What's the problem? The problem is that the other fullback moves in to become a centre half. So we've got more players here who can try and swarm and win the ball back. But it means there's a player completely free on the back post every time. And in this case, it's someone who's sort of in the pocket here. And you can see it's almost the same situation. Now, I suppose luckily or unluckily for us, it doesn't actually get to Son. But unluckily, it goes to Richarlison instead, who got the run on Wout fast. And it's a very easy goal for him to score. And he just heads it into the back of the net. So I was very disappointed with that goal because up until then, I actually think we were maybe 50-50 in the game. Sure, that Son forced Larchik into a save. But, they weren't really sort of dominating. And they've scored really with their first cross into the back of the net. But yeah, some other things then as well then is so the other thing that I think maybe teams might be exploiting as well is if I had to compare Jakub Stolarczyk to Mads Hermansen, is that here again is another set piece and it's going to be whipped in. I think this time it's from Son. Ball's going to go up here. And Stolarczyk, I feel like if this is Mads, I think he's going to catch this because I think he's got confidence with him. But instead, Jakub, he's going to punch it. Now, punching it isn't bad per se, but the issue is it's just bringing pressure back and back on top of you, right? And that's kind of what we're seeing here.
I will say, right, and I think it's something that teams are trying to abuse as well. They know we have a young, inexperienced keeper, right? Because if you go back again and look at the screenshot, I mean, just when you're arguing that he could catch it, right? There. I mean, obviously, we have three on one, and they have one man very close to a keeper, which makes it even harder, right? If it's, lack of control of area, him not yelling keepers or whatever, really. I don't know, but I do think, like, this situation, it is hard to catch this, right? And as you say, you're probably right that Hermansen could, but I have realized it's a general tendency that there are a lot of men swarming the keeper recently, and I do think that puts Darcy under more pressure. So, I mean, if he isn't fully confident in catching it, I'd rather see him punch it away and not make a Robert Sanchez level mistake. But I do agree with you. It's definitely something that teams try to utilize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm going to come to is, again, when I look at this sort of situation, the way that you can potentially deal with this, because you might be, basically, the idea is the reason why they've shifted the cross is they're trying to stop the cross from coming in. So if we are going to defend like this, what we need to do is either in this situation, someone's got to go out and stop the cross coming in. Or if the cross is going to come in, then I think the keeper's got to be more aggressive to come and get it. That's if we're going to play this way, right? Because you can see that there's a free man. So he's got to come and actively punch it or try and claim it. Otherwise, we're going to get caught out. So that's an obvious weakness that we're now seeing structurally, and we've seen it a few times in the game. But of course, when Mads comes back, perhaps we'll be more secure. The other thing that I'll just kind of touch upon is that it was very noticeable that Jakob was kicking the ball long pretty much all the time from goal kick, average pass length, 43.2 yards. But we're going to come back to that later because that is what Ruud decided to do and where we probably won the game. Yeah, Jakob should have come out to punch the ball out. Perhaps what I'm saying is that, you know, if we are going to defend that way, that's what we need to do. And Dorko said here, well, we have a new right fullback. We can get JJ back to where he belongs on the left, and maybe VK could spend some time on the bench. I think that he wasn't good in that first half. He was much better in the second half. He's actually made the most challenges of any Leicester City player this season. What I would say, though, is that both Christensen and JJ, they've played a lot of games, and I feel they could do with a little bit of a rest and then come back strong towards the end. So that should help them, I feel. And yes, Luke Thomas did deputise for one game, but I don't think he's as good as Victor Christensen. And he'll go for sure. And yeah, they shift towards the ball, but if you're playing for the cross, get tight to the winger and fullback. Well, that's what I would do, but for whatever reason, Ruud prefers to keep it compact so that it's easier to keep the shape. But overall with Jakob, he actually had a good game. 90 minutes played, 52 touches. He didn't have so many accurate passes because he was going for the long balls, but you can see, look, 0.9 goals prevented, 5 saves, 3 punches, a successful run out, a high claim, ground duel 1, aerial duel 1 last man tackle, and I love the last stat, 20 minutes wasted.
Any chance we can go back just to the last graph, right, to see where he kicked long, because I think a general observation I saw it in the game was most of these long kicks were towards the right-hand side, and Jordan Ayew, he is the target man we have in attack, right? Yeah. He's the one with the most physicality. And I thought in particular this game, where we complained about in the Fulham game, where Anthony Robinson really had Jordan Ayew's number. I think this time against Archie Gray, who's, you know, not that physical, very offensive minded, this was the perfect time to make these long kicks. And as you showed earlier as well, right, they like to press high. So with the amount of defensive mistakes we've made, I didn't care if Jakob Stelagic just kicked it out of play in the middle of the field, because at least we weren't making the mistake that gave them a free goal in defense, because James Justin or Fast would have to try and play it out against a 4 or 5 man press from Tottenham. So I thought it was a really smart and simple adaptation. And even if you can see some of the balls went out, or maybe Jordan Ayew or Dicodor Reed on this, I didn't win all of the headers or the second balls, it's a simple tweak that made sure we didn't give up any stupid goals. And I really, really thought that was smart.
Well, the other thing, of course, is it forces them back. So we're going to come on to that, because that's what I think the real sort of advantage of going that way was. So yeah, here's what I'm saying about the defensive issues. We see this situation across multiple games. Defending in the compact 4-4-2 is effective, but we've got to watch out for the vacant free winger. Here he is. Because when we compress, that winger is too often able to find that free space. And I think that could cost us. And I think someone like Moyes will pick up on that, especially as they've got 2 useful wide men. But anyway, we've talked about that. Now let's talk about Bouba Samare and his emergence as a key player. Here he is. And chat, I've got to call you out, because when we did the match ratings, you gave him a 7.2.
Disturbing.
And, well, we're going to show you, and I think he deserved a much better rating than this. So here we're going to look at Super Samare. So here he is. He's actually playing quite high up the field. And that was a big change that Ruud did for this game. He actually went to win the ball much higher up the pitch. We're going to come to why he did that in a second. And this really, really helped his game, I think. And it perhaps unleashed him, I would go as far as saying. So here we can see Spurs are going to try and play it out of trouble. But you can see that Samare is in on the case. He's going to cut the ball out. He's doing the defensive work. Well, what I like about this, he doesn't just get the ball. I feel like indeed he would also get the ball. But what he does, he turns defense into attack. And he plays the ball right away, despite being fairly congested, into Bilal. Bilal then can play it back. And that means that now we're on the attack, right? So we won the ball up high. Everyone can push up the pitch. And now we can attack Spurs. Very good. Some more from Samare. So here you can see his position here. You can see Fass is on the ball. And you can see that even though Samare is here, he knows as soon as Vestergaard gets the ball that he's got to move and make an option for him. So he's going to pull off. Vestergaard pulls a nice sort of pass between the lines there. Samare is going to get it. He's going to combine here with Bobby Reed, and the two of them combine pretty well. I think they actually combine better than Samare and Mavadidi usually do. So here he is. He takes it, and now he beats his man. He's going to drive forward, and he's going to try and play it into some space here. He's going to try and play it into Victor. Perhaps this ball isn't the best, but it ends up with kind of 50-50 duel. The ball breaks free. And who's going to get to the ball first? Well, here's why. It's Super Samare. Because here he is. He's on the scene. And this is the big thing that he's improved, I think, given compared to 2 years ago when he was last playing for Leicester. He's so much more mobile. He's so much more determined to win it. And he's winning a lot more challenges. So now he's going to get on the ball and charge for it. So this is actually the Jamie Vardy goal. This is the start of the second half. And you can see he really grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck and tried to do something. I've just, highlighted Bobby Reid here as well. He's going to make a very clever run. But this is the big thing as well about why, when we were able to win the ball high up against Spurs, you can see that they haven't had time to reset into their position. So they're going to have the spaces that we mentioned before.
Look what Pedro Porro is here, right? I mean, he is in no man's land and really well utilized. Brilliant.
Exactly. And so, it's interesting one. Who stands down for Ndidi when he's back? It's going to be Winks for sure, because he's not playing like Samari is. But here we go. Samari gets the ball. And here's the other big thing that he's added to his game. I feel like in previous weeks, he would get the ball, but he wouldn't make the right decision. But at this point in time, despite having 3 men around him, he's composed. Can see he waits for the right time for the player to sort of try and bait the press. And then, boom. What a great ball he plays. He's even nutsed him there, it looks like. Plays it through to Bobby Reid. And it's a great pass from Bobby Reid, but let me tell you, when you've got this much space around you, it's pretty easy for you. And just to say, we could do what Spurs did to us. You got Jordan Ayew potentially free on the back post there. Bobby Reid plays a really good ball right into the danger area. It's a difficult one to deal with if you're Spurs. That said, I think between the defender and the keeper, they make an absolute meal out of it. It ricochets to Vardy. Vardy doesn't know too much about it. Doesn't matter. Sticks it in the back of the net. And of course, he's reminding the Spurs fans about how many Premier League titles they've won compared to the others. And here's the point. Steffi would never cross it. I actually agree. And that's what I thought. That Bobby Reid, again, sort of almost Canoose-like, that rather than trying to be greedy, a team player, he actually did the right things at the right time. We're going to come to Bobby Reid because, like I said, I think he had a good game. And this is what Rude said, and I think this is very interesting. He was asked, was this Samari's best performance of the season? For me, I thought it was his best performance. And he said, no. He plays like this every week. He has been outstanding. And
that's just, lovely.
Yeah. And he looked like a proud dad when he said that. It's all right, Steve, if you gave him a 6. Now I'm trying to show everyone on chat why I think he was so good. I have to say, he was good. But when you watch the game again, you just think to yourself, wow, he was absolutely on it. And Sean, I agree with you. Kinski did do a terrible job of stopping. Yeah,
I want to give more credit to Diego Reid on that cross because it goes into this no man's land where, especially when it's a new defense, right? I mean, we've had that as well when crosses hit right in this no man's land where there is no obvious candidate for who's supposed to get to the ball. You can see, I don't know who the defender is. I think it's Dragosine, or I think there's Ben Davies, whoever it is, could potentially get to the ball first. It is in this space where there is no obvious. It's either the keepers or it's defenders, and that leaves this, leaves room for error, I want to say. And that's exactly what happened from Tottenham, right? New young keeper, inexperienced, and they don't, they don't communicate well about it, and Vardy gets to punish it. But I mean, had this been 10, 20 centimeters closer to the keeper, it would have been obvious that he was supposed to get it, and things would have looked very different. I think this is a cross that makes it hard for them to deal with. Yeah, the corridor of uncertainty is probably a very good way to phrase it.
100%. Exactly. And that's the thing. Putting the ball into the corridor of uncertainty makes such a difference. And we lack that with Mavadidi. And yeah, look, even if Kinski actually gets his arms to that, with the way he's positioned that's probably going to go straight out to either El Canouse or Ayew. So it's very good cross for that reason. Anyway, that's 1-0. And yeah, just to show this, that these are brilliant stats. This is like the ultimate box-to-box player who's doing everything. 90 minutes played, 50 touches. Despite having, 41 passes, he had 90% passing accuracy, despite being all over the pitch. One key pass, you just saw it, an accurate cross, one accurate long ball, 2 successful dribbles. But here's the big stuff, the defensive work. 4 out of 4 ground duels won, 1 out of 2 aerial duels won, 2 tackles, 1 interception, no one dribbled past him. Superb. If he plays like this every single game, he could keep us up, right? And yeah, that's the history of the Tottenham. And low crosses again. But yeah, this was actually brilliant. And yeah, I agree with you, Sean. 20 million for Skip looking worse and worse every match day. Hilariously, though, if we'd have spent 20 million on Samare this season and he was doing this, we'd be calling probably signing of the summer. So anyway, it's great. It's taken him, let's be honest with us, 2 or 3 years for him to get to this thing. But this is what the modern day Premier League midfielder needs to be able to do. These stats, what I love about it is he can do a bit of everything. Maybe if you're being super critical, you could say, where are the goals from Samari? Where are the assists? But I think in this position, it's more about those key passes. I'm not expecting him to get assists or goals, although I do think he should be chipping in with 3 to 5 of those in a season. But it's more that he should be the one that plays the pre-assist, the guy that plays it to Bobby Reid, who then does the damage. But very good from Booba, and we're going to see more of him a bit more. So now we're going to come on to Spurs' insane highline and Bilal El Khanous. So as mentioned before, this is the way that Spurs played. So actually, what Ruud decided to do is that we thought he might go for pace, but he decided to do something different. And what he decided to do was kicking it out long with Stolarczyk. So why is he doing that? Why he's doing that is this. He is trying to stop Spurs from getting into their shape. By kicking it long, it means that these two fullbacks, they've got to go back and they've got to reset their position. So that's going to stop them from coming backwards. It also means that if we win the ball and we play it long quickly, they're not going to be in those spaces there. So essentially, we're trying to tire them out by making them go back and forth. So just imagine they've gone all the way to press forward, but now we've kicked it long. So they've got to go back because they know that it's a tactic from us. Otherwise, who's going to be picking up either Ayew or Bobby Reid? So quite clever to do that. And that means that when we are kicking the ball long, then it means we can push up the field ourselves. And it means that our tactic was to try and win the ball high. So actually, what Ruud was trying to do in this game is rather than being defensive and hit them on the break, actually our tactic was we were trying to trap them and win the ball off their inverting fullbacks before they could get started, catch them out of position and exploit them in the transition where they're not set. That's the big thing about transitions. So here we are with exploiting Andrew's system. So it's 1-1 and we came out this second half absolutely brilliantly. And I want to see more of this, to be honest with you. And again, I think Samari was so important to this. He actually was acting almost like a captain. So I've got him circled here again. Here's Spurs on the ball. They're going to play it into one of their wide players. This is Kulusevski. He's going to play it back. He's going to play it across here. But who's on the ball there? It's Samari. And again, look at the space that he covers here, right? So he's really quick in the tackle, gets in, sticks a challenge. And now, from this point on, this is the Samari show. So here he gets it. Now look at this. He now plays a little, look at that little kind of cute back heel out to the foot to Bobby Reid. He keeps on the ball, right? And so he's that's what I'm saying. Just doing this, he wins the ball up high, right? You can see usually he'd be back here, but unleashing him and allowing him to play more forwards, wins the ball, plays a little back heel there. Now Bobby Reid gets to it and he plays it into Bilal. Now, Andreas, I said to you before, and I often use the Leicester City examples, right? But if you're looking at this from a coaching point of view, what is wrong about this screenshot if you're a Spurs fan?
I mean, the acres of space around a key central player in Leicester City's attack, right? I get this is on a transition, but there should never be this much space. I mean, it is absolutely insane. And I think the most shocking part as well, and maybe it's with work ethic or whatever, but how long it takes for them to close him down as well when he gets the ball is even worse. Yeah, I think brilliant catch there from Samari. And look at what he does as well, right? Maybe the old Samari wouldn't have done much more, gone back in place because his duties in attack were over. But with the fact that he continues to push forward, it takes another member to track him, right? So that's one more Spurs member or player removed from being able to cover the space El Khanous is in. And yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's Samari working hard there as well. And I mean, just look at that space, man. It is acres. It's a field day, dude. It's a field day.
It's insane from them. But as Sean's kind of put it here, this is exactly it. So kicking it long stretches the high line to the point where there's literally no one in midfield. And what are we saying here? There is no one in midfield. And we're going to come on to Bilal in a moment. But Samari does well here again, because by moving forward, he's going to drag players around him, giving Khanous even more space. So now it means Bobby Reid, his second assist of the day, although I have to say Khanous does a lot of the hard work here. So now Bobby Reid plays in El Khanous. Another well-timed pass, you can see there, beats the challenge. It's going to freeze him. And again, as has been put here, arguably the most creative player on the pitch, and you give him that much free space. Lol. Precisely. And again, he moves forward. And look at that. You cannot give a number 10. Like, we would not give James Maddison that much space. You're asking for trouble at that point in time. And so then fair play. He's got all the time in the world to pick out his pass. He decides to go for a little delicate shot here. I like that. I mean, if you look at this, there's not too much to aim for here. Yeah, perhaps Ayew could be higher there. But anyway, he goes for the shot, puts it in the back of the net. That's 2-1.
Did you see the video on Leicester's Twitter where you can see, I believe it is from that moment, where Ruud is like guiding him for the way to finish it. And he talked to him brilliant. I rewatched those 5 minutes later when I was eating some food before I went to bed when we won that game. And I think the Danish commentator said as well, Kinsey could jump at that 100 more times. He would never get to it. Like, it is placed so perfectly that you can put Courtois, Neuer, or anyone in that prime in goal, and you just don't get to that ball because it is tucked neatly in the bottom corner. Brilliant finish. Absolutely elite level placing there from him. It is, beautifully tucked to bed.
Well, I love the way that he celebrated, giving it a big one with the fans. I really like that hard work, putting in the challenges, scoring. And what I think is really great about Bilal is that, you know, yes, I agree with this, what Steve's put here. Bilal needs an end product, but boy, what an end product. He needs to do it more often. But he could be honestly, if we're going to stay up, he's going to be one of the main reasons why. If he can score, let's say, 5 goals between now and the end of the season, I mean, that's pretty tough. That's almost a 1 in 2. So maybe a little bit less than that. But if he could do that, get the goals and assists going, he can keep us up. He's got the quality and he showed it there. So here were his stats. Again, very good. 77 minutes played, 41 touches. Not so good on a passing accuracy, but I think the difference is that when you're in his position, we have to give him license to go for the creative passes, right? So I think the people in the sixes, like Samari and if it be either Ndidi or Winks, they need to be at least 85% on the passing accuracy, if not 90. But these players can be a little bit lower. But here we go. 1 goal. Here's the real key thing. 4 passes into the final third, 3 out of 3 successful dribbles. I don't think he gets enough credit, actually. He's a better dribbler than you might think he is. But here's the thing that I think really separates him and why this guy is really mature for his age. Despite being an attacking midfielder, the creative outlet, and despite being just 20 years old, he will do the dirty work. 5 out of 6 ground duels won, 2 out of 3 aerial duels won. He's not the tallest player. 2 tackles. And, you know, it's funny how whenever he comes off, he really looks really tired and gassed. But there was such a good comment in the instant match reaction when someone said, maybe he wouldn't be as gassed if the team did the same amount of work that he did. And I thought that was such a brilliant comment, because that's what we need to resolve as an issue in the team. So great player, well deserved a goal, turned it around.
Just note, right, more on Canush, right? I mean, the thing is, as well, he's performing so well that people outside of Leicester are starting to open his eyes about him. I had one of my friends I play Football Manager with, a QPR fan, message me afterwards and be like, yeah, Bilal Canush is genuinely one of the players he's most excited to see like develop in the Prem currently. He really thinks like that. I mean, people from outside the club are seeing the talent in him as well now, and it's really good to see, man. He could genuinely be special. I think. Sadly, we are in a position to keep him for more than a few more years, but I'm enjoying every game I get to see this kid pull on our shirt. Lovely, man. Lovely.
Well, to be honest with you, he's doing the best thing, which is someone like this, he needs to play every week. And being the main man will help him, I think, especially at his age. But for sure, I think if we go to the Championship, he's too good for that division. We can tell that already. But let's just give some love to Bobby Reid. So I think he had a good game overall. 86-minute plays, 75% passing, actually, but 4 key passes. That's the real big thing. 1 big chance created, 2 assists. I mean, that's what you're there. Goals and assists in those positions. But you can see his lack of physicality. So he didn't win so many duels, no aerial duels won, only 1 tackle, got dribbled past twice. So that's something that he could improve. As someone who's of that sort of physical stature myself, it's difficult when you're up against people that are taller, stronger, bigger than you. But El Canoes manages to do it. So that's the thing, that's the side of his game that I think he needs to work on.
I want to say as well, I think he's like a tricky winger, right? He's so different compared to Mavididi, who's more direct. I think the thing that makes Dico Reid hard to play against is when he gets these balls, he often finds a really smart one-touch pass or a fancy little ball to create a chance you didn't really see. And I think that shows in the 4 key passes, right? Because so often he becomes just a middleman to someone else's play because he takes the ball, immediately sends it back in the right position for them to continue their attack or whatever. And I think he adds such a different dimension, which is really nice to have.
Yeah. Well, Tom put a really good. Tom's put a good comment here. Understated. That's how I would put it there as well. I think it's different. He's kind of like, do you know what, Michael? I don't know what your problem is with Samara. I've literally just shown you why he was one of the best players on the pitch. If you're not getting that, feel sorry for you, mate. But yeah, Bobby Reid, very good. I think he's not a winger, right? He tried to beat his man one-on-one and failed. That's not what he's good at. But what he is good at is being more of a kind of almost like a wide playmaker, you could call him. He's not that dissimilar to El Canoes when he was sort of playing wide, but El Canoes is so good, you don't want him wide, you want him in the middle, which fair play to Ruth is what he's done there. So, okay, we've talked about that. Now we're going to move on to the next point, which is a lack of threat on transition. So, we're 2-1 up, or actually not just 2-1 up, but actually through the game. I think we did well, right? So, our tactic was this, right? We were trying to kick it long, win the ball high up the field, with Samare taking center stage at doing that. But it wasn't just him. Many of the players like El Kanous also doing well there. And then we'd win the ball back. And then we were on the transition. But the issue is that when we were on transition, we didn't do the best in terms of scoring. And I feel like if you look at Nottingham Forest this season, right, they're basically doing the Leicester from 15-16, just not as well. But what we did so well in that season is that Kante would win it. He'd play it to Drinkwater. Drinkwater would play the ball over the top to either Mahrez or Vardy, and those two we would score. And it would be either they scored one-on-one or one of the two of them passed to the other and they would score. They were so clinical. So here we sing here, Jordan Ayew, here again, right? So here's the thing about the tactic. We're going to try and win the ball high up the pitch. And we did it. We did very well at winning the ball up the field. So now we're going to go and attack. We've got 3 people on it. Here we go with Ayew. He's got the ball and he gets crowded out. Whereas again, if we got maybe more people or more clinical, we sometimes find a free man. Perhaps this is not the best example, but it's setting the tone for what was to come. So here's another time. Spurs again. The ball's going to come up for a 50-50. And this time around, it's your man. Your man. It's Victor Christiansen. He does. He's made the most challenges out of any Leicester City player. KCK with no pace. Yes, that is a big issue in our team. I will tell you that much. Here, though, he wins the ball and he gets it to Christensen. And so when he does, look, fair play to him as well, Victor. As soon as he wins the ball back, he knows what his role is. He's got to attack here. So now we're going to attack with the 4 of them. And he's going to get the ball back on receiving. And so this was a great chance. And this, I think, really summarizes my thing about lack of threat on transition. So you can see the run. Fair play to Ayew. He makes the right run. Vardy's going to drag 3 of the clueless Spurs defenders with him. Ayew's doing this. Pass me the ball. Pass me the ball. Gets the ball played into him. And you know what? Let me just do something here. And then Ayew gets a ball. But why is he trying to finish like this? This is like the worst possible finish you could do. I think in this position, if you're left-footed, you'd probably try and want to curl it in, right? Or here you could go for power. But instead he's going for like some weird side foot. And it just means that it gets dealt with too easily.
I mean, he should have just taken a touch, right? He has space, and
look how much.
And then try like a Daka finish, just fucking hammer it towards goal and pray that you hit the target. Because Jordan Ayew, he does have power as well in his shots. He's not one to place them really that often. So yeah, especially, I mean, if he was under an immense pressure, fair enough. But dude, you definitely have time for 1 or 2 touches more here.
Well, he doesn't even pass it to the keeper, Kuna, but I get your point. He can't even get it to the keeper. So I've got to be honest, I was so disappointed with that because this is great play from the team. So you've done everything that you wanted to, right? With this, the tactic is to win the ball up high. We do it. Then on transition, we're a threat. Kanous, great ball, puts the key pass in. This is brilliant play. Look, we're outnumbered. They've got 5 men back. We've got 3. But because we've won it on transition with coach, we can see the massive gaps that we know Spurs are going to leave. It's going to go into him. And as you say, Andreas, you've got so much time here. Maybe against a better team, you would be able to take, more kind of chance. And then he does it here. And boom, it gets dealt with. So that's another example there. I've got another one here. So this time again, Ayew's going to get the ball and he's managed to feed in Vardy. Vardy's got it here. Everyone's going to be in attack. And Vardy's going to try and go for this cute ball. This is the thing that Vardy doesn't get enough credit for. It's not just the fact that he's a finisher, but it's his good link-up play. So he's going to play the nice deft ball here. Fair play to Bobby Reid, who's made the run off the wing to attack centrally. It's going to come to him. And again, he gets crowded out. But look, he does have sort of time to have a shot that gets dealt with, right? And that you can see with his face there, he knows he was close there, right? So that's the thing. Again, in a bit better, if we were more clinical as a team, that goes in. And that's the difference when, that's the difference between a team that's going to do well in the Premier League for not. Sacrifice accuracy for power or more power there, perhaps. That's what he could do there. So that was another example. We made the chance, but we haven't taken it. We've got another one. Your man again here. Victor's on the ball. He's played it into Samare, of course. It seems to feature Samare in all of our good play in this game, unsurprisingly. And he's going to spot JJ. JJ's going to join in the attack. So here we go. Samare's played it into JJ. JJ's got the ball. Well, and now he's going to interlink with Jordan Ayew. So Jordan Ayew is going to play it back and he's going to play it into Harry Winks. Now, this is something that I really like. This is actually what I'm going to think is a Ruud van Nistelrooy special. So last season, we had various attacking patterns of play and they were always quite common. Like you'd sort of see this number 8 go into the inside channel.
That was like the ND rule, right? He got like...
Yeah. But this is something that he's clearly worked on because he mentioned this after the game. So Justin's played it into Ayew. And then the idea here is he stepped up the run there. And now the defenders kind of take their eye off him. And so that means Harry Winks, look at this space that's opened up. JJ's going to make that run in. And look at that, boom, he receives it and he's got a chance here. And the form that Justin's in, this is a much better opportunity than he looks, right? And he goes that he's going to try and curl it. And you can see what he's going for, and it just goes wide. And you can see with his face that he did it. And so Rude mentioned this, that this was a big opportunity. And perhaps this is where if Woyo Koulibaly comes into the team, he could cut in on his left foot and maybe try and cut it into or curl it into left-hand side. So what I like those is just a really nice pattern of play that by doing this, we're trying to, the fullbacks join in. So that's something you've got to adapt to because your right backs come all the way up to make the extra player. And now he's going to stay in the attack, make the kind of inside run here. Wings can pick him out, or he can threaten across where we've got 4 players who are trying to exploit the space. So pretty good. Yeah, I think it did take a deflection too, Sean. But I think, like I say, it's a good chance. Yeah,
it definitely took a deflection. I remember watching the replay. I can't remember if we got a corner from it or they just didn't see it. But I think, it looks like a situation where you'd like Woyo Koulibaly to be, right? So I'm excited to see if he'll start against Everton or if Justin retains his space. I thought in particular this was actually a pretty good game from James Justin all around. In particular, something I think we don't give enough credit to the defenders for is that trigger press. Like that often works out. And I saw Justin really shut down a lot of attacks this game with it. So I think he's fighting for his spot well, and I'm excited to see who will get to keep the spot or if Woyo will be able to get it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some people are saying if Vardy gets injured, we get relegated. I don't know, but it obviously affects our chances. But I think the way that we play more as a team rather than relying on individuals. If anything, the individuals that we're relying on right now is probably Bilal El Khanous. I think if he got injured, we'd be in big trouble. Don't get me wrong. I think it would be worse if we were starting Daka instead of Vardy when we're going for these more clever team moves. But, I don't think it'd be like completely impossible. But for sure, I'm hoping Vardy doesn't get injured. I'm going to show you another example. Spurs out on the wing. It's your man again who's going to win the challenge. So this is Victor Christensen. He's going to play it in. And that means Bobby Reed's got it. He's going to play it into El Khanous. El Khanous has got the ball here. And this is probably the one wrong thing he did in the entire game. So he's got the ball here. And he's got 2 options here. What are his 2 options? Option A is he could play the cute ball into Bobby Reed, who'd basically be in 1-on-1. Or he could go for option B, which is the shot. And this time round, I guess he's a bit greedy because he goes for option B and it goes high and wide.
I think that's one of the worst first times I've actually ever seen Khanous be this greedy because that is a clear through ball to be played there. This isn't some hard to execute ball. Anyone could get that ball through and maybe, they'd misplace it, but they could definitely get the ball through. And I'm sure he could play a brilliant one as well. Unfortunate there, but I think maybe, those finishing lessons from Ruben Nistelrooy got him wanting to try it out, being a bit more eager to shoot. And I mean, he played a brilliant game, so I can't be too mad. But this could genuinely have been a massive one-on-one chance and could have been 1-1.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because normally he's the type of player that prefers to play the pass rather than go for a shot because the percentage option is definitely option A. But at the same time, I think he probably has been told by Rude that, he's the star man of the team. He's got to try and do something. And look, he did score. So ultimately, he's got something here. But there, the option A was definitely And I was a bit mad. And Bobby Reed was really pissed off as well. Because you can see with the run that he's made it, they'd have a clear shot there. Or maybe even Ayew could peel off to the back post. So my point is, again, is this at this point in time, we're 1-0 down. And that was an opportunity to make it 1-1. And we've missed that other opportunity earlier on in the half. Here's another moment. Here we're 2-1 up. So we're going to win the ball here. I think this is actually James Justin.
That is that trigger press I just mentioned before, right? Stops the attack before it even starts. Brilliant trigger press.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, here we win the ball and we can see with how many men that Spurs have committed forwards, it means that there's masses of spaces in behind. So everyone's going to get on their bike. JJ's going to charge up the pitch. Ayew's going to continue making his run. You can see everyone's attracted to JJ. They're going to try and win the ball back quickly, but this makes them just even more vulnerable. He gets the ball out to Ayew. Ayew's got the ball here. He's going to play it back into Justin. But Justin, where he is, to be fair, Dragoson's covering him well, so he can't get the shot away or the cross. So he's going to play it back to Ayew. And here, Ayew, he just went for the first time stop either shot or cross. And again, if he's a bit better, look, he could have played it into El Khanous there. And that would have been potentially another goal. So again, it's like, just a bit frustrating because he's done everything well in this move, right? We've just, Justin picks up the ball here, sees the opportunity and turns defense into attack. Great engine on him. And look, 2-1. I actually have to say that at 2-1, Spurs were absolutely rocking. There was definitely a 5 to 10 minute period where I felt that we could have definitely stayed up. But I
want to say here as well, I mean, had this been a Fatawu, right? Just think about where he would have been in this situation in terms of the pace, because you can see Ayew is trying, bro. but Granddad can't run that fast anymore. I mean, I think, Fatau would have been in such a better situation, and obviously being left-footed as well, right? I think he would have taken one touch and then tried to shoot and potentially scored. I mean, yeah, I think they tried to make the best of it. I would have liked to see James Justin either go for the shot or try to get it in and potentially get a corner in the process, right? From hitting Dragusin on the way if he couldn't get it through to Vardy. But yeah, I mean, again, so many steps here are done right. But if we were a little bit faster or a little bit more clinical, we would have gotten more for this situation.
Yeah, I think you guys have been a bit unfair with the pace here. I actually agree more with Easy Azabaza. It's decision making. Right. Yes, if we'd have got there with pace, then perhaps you're right. If that was for Tawu, looking at the move, yeah, because you actually can see the pace, to be fair. So maybe I'm a bit wrong because IU starts in front of Justin, but he ain't got the afterburners.
It's more the fact that I don't expect him to be further forward, knowing the pace that he has, right? He's quite clearly doing everything he can here and trying to, again, make up for the lack of pace in other areas, like the decision making or trying to.
Yeah, to be fair though, I'll take that back. I think you're right. If that's for Tawu is probably up here, and that makes the decision
had this been for Tawu, right? He would probably be around the place when he would probably been around place number 23. One touch, cut inside, try and shoot, and then obviously he misses quite often for Tawu, but he has gotten more clinical this season before he got injured. So yeah, I mean, it's more. It's just you remember why you miss for Tawu, right? And what he brings to the field. I love the guy, man. I want him back so soon.
Yeah. But that's the point is, again, I've shown you how many different attempts here. If we were a better team, we could have scored a lot more goals than we did. And it's all just because we're not making the most of the transition. So it's something we've got to practice a lot because that's, I feel, Ruud's style. And you actually saw when Ruud was in charge of Man United, they scored a lot against Leicester. They scored against many other teams as well. And it's because they weren't the best team, but that team was set up to be well on transition and it is effective. Right, I don't think it's going to win you the league, but we're not going to win the league with the current Leicester team we've got. Maybe we need quite a bit of investment to do something like that. Anyway, what I want to say as well is they're the transitions, but I'm going to show you that we weren't always like this. Here are actually some examples from last season, just to show you. So here we go, classic Wout fast mistake there. Don't know if you've just seen it, but luckily here we're going to see where we're at our absolute best. Of course, this is the Championship, not the Premier League, but you can see here defense into attack, pretty similar to against Spurs. The other team have committed a lot of people forward. Oh, look, it's James Justin. This time round, first time ball, boom. Okay, sure, you might say that's not going to happen in the Premier League, but it shows us that we could do it. And this was against the Premier League team. This was against Bournemouth. Again, look at that. Ricardo playing his way out of trouble. That's actually Yunus Akgun, believe it or not, into Fatawu.
This sort of
similar thing. We've got 3 against 5 there, so Bournemouth in trouble. Look at that, great run through. That's actually that's Kelechi and Nacho. Now, to be fair, what happens next is a bit. You're not going to do that every time, but
man, that's such a good goal. I mean, I think as well, right? The situation I talked about before, had it been not IU and Fatawu, I think Fatawu would have had one of those chances. Obviously, again, if you say you're not going to score that every time, far from it. But I think it would have been, we would have gotten more out of the chance. But yeah, I think on the transition, obviously there's a point to be made that it was in the Championship, but I do think we are missing some of those players. Especially, I think Sumari can do it, but Wings really isn't that player, right? He wants to slowly build up and play these through balls between the lines when they are in defensive order. I mean, Wings did have some decent counter-attacks as well, in particular the West Brom game, but not as often as someone like Dewsbury Hall did or whoever, right?
Yeah, that was against Bournemouth, by the way. Although admittedly it was an FA Cup game, so both teams sort of played there. Yeah.
They actually played pretty much the A team. I remember Bournemouth. I mean, they had a very, very strong lineup there, and we played Ion Reiki, who is by no means anywhere near the first team anymore, and we beat them. That game gave me hope that we would stay in the Premier League if Inter stayed.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question because Costa's asked, it says, is last season's team better than this season's team? And in my opinion, yes, it was. I think that's mainly down to injuries, but we just saw in that move. In that move, you had Ricardo and you had Fatawu, and those are 2 players that make a big difference. And if you've got Kin and Dewsbury Hall in there as well, it's going to make you better. Steve, we'll come to your Woyo question near the end because we've got a little section about him because, of course, we had to. So let's now move on. We're 2-1 up, and it was very noticeable that Ruud decided that he wanted to see out the game. Now, Steve Cooper tried this against Crystal Palace earlier in the season. It went from 2-1 to 2-2, and we absolutely buried him. And I do think if this had gone to 2-2 as well, Ruud would probably also have got pelters, but we got away with it. And how did we get away with it? Well, we're talking about the dark art. And I've got to say, someone who was the absolute master of it in this game was take about Jordan Ayew. He might have made some problems there on transition. But one thing I'll say that he did really well, and someone was joking, they said, I think I saw Jordan Ayew have 12 different head injuries in about 10 minutes. He absolutely did. So this is what he's the master of. Stolarczyk, and we said it then, he's gone for the long goal kick. Why? To look how much we force Spurs back so they can't swarm us when they're trying to get a goal. Ayew gets it, drops to the ground. My head. That wasted about 3 minutes. Here's another one later on. Bentancur goes in with the header. Brilliant in the deck. That was another 4 minutes, I think, wasted.
Jamie Vardy's teaching them well, man. Those are the dark arts of shithousing.
Here's some more. So actually, I mentioned dark arts, but it's not just dark arts, but I would say the willingness to put bodies on the line and to really just force ourselves and make us hard to beat. So here I've got Victor Christensen. So we did say that I didn't show you so much, but he hadn't had the best first half, but I think he was much better in the second half. And this is one of the reasons why. So you can see here that he's going to follow his man all the way across the pitch. He's not going to give up, right? And that means that we can swarm them. And it means that we can kind of try and deal with it. Now here, you might think, oh, okay, they've got it through to Son, but that was offside, by the way. And even if it was onside, you got to say that Stolarczyk was ready for the danger and dealt with it. So what I'm saying is this attitude is extremely important. I've said this quite a few times that during the Great Escape season, we didn't have the best team, but the team fought. You knew that a lot of them, their dream was to play in the Premier League. So when they got there, they were not going to give up on that dream too easily. And they just fought for everything. And that's what you need to do, right? And we need to see that attitude all the time. Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not, but it's a mental attitude. Go on, Duck.
Yeah, it's my boy Christiansen, right? I think that's the thing I really like about him and why I will always rate that part of him, even when he isn't the best technically or anything, right? He still currently has a lot of shortcomings at the Premier League level, but he just never gives up, man. He's played 75 minutes at this point, and he constantly tested against Kulusevski, who is a very capable Premier League player, and there to chase him, like fight for every inch, right? I think that is what we need to stay up because it's not always going to be pretty. We don't have the best technical players by any means. This is what can help us get these points and get results over the line. Just never giving up and fighting for every single inch. And even if you're tracking a guy 30 meters, it doesn't matter. You're doing it for the betterment of the team. And I like that mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, right? I mean, as I say, so you just got to grind out results at this point, this stage of the season. Now, Costa, you say something that I actually agree with you. So you say, right, by inviting so much pressure for so long against the better team, we would have been punished severely on a different occasion. Agreed. But I do think that as Rude, I understand that when confidence is rock bottom, when you've had 7 losses in a row, it's about getting the points, right? And we got the points. And yeah, fair enough. From Planet Earth, you said Spurs were on about the level Southampton have been all season. I would argue even worse. I think they were terrible, right? But at the same time, confidence and morale is important. So look, we've dealt with it here, but I do agree. I've shown you all those examples of the transition. I think a more confident Leicester, let's say this time the Leicester from last season, even though we're in the Championship, I think a game like this we'd have won 4-1 because I think we'd have had the confidence to kill them on the transition and we wouldn't have been so scared of them getting a goal. But for this one, you know, we know. And yeah, I think this is fair from Thomas, right? He says they've still got great strikers though. Spurs attack is still top half. Yeah, they've scored the 3rd most amount of goals in the entire division, right? So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, look at that goal difference right now. I think they have +9 and they're sitting 15th or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they certainly still know how to get goals. So I think obviously I thought that we took the sting out of their attack really. And I thought we did brilliantly defensively for most of the game.
I hope that sitting back and praying doesn't become a habit. I do kind of agree with you, but the thing is that, you know, you can't constantly attack because as we've seen here, the reason we've beaten Spurs is because they're too offensively orientated. So they've left these gaps when we win the ball. So you do have to maintain a balance. And a good question from KCK, which is a question, is it easy to defend or attack when low on confidence? Surely attack. Perhaps that we haven't been scoring goals recently. Spurs are low on confidence themselves. They went to attack. And it didn't work. I don't know. I'm not trying to sort of say do one or the other, by the way. I think it's an interesting thing. And ultimately, it comes down to, as a manager, if it works, you look great. If it doesn't, you look bad. Rude, in this game, if we'd have lost it, would have said, why did you pick Jordan Ayew? Why did you pick Bobby Reed? Why didn't you pick Patson Daka. But instead, his tactics worked. And instead, I'm saying that tactic and that strategy, he selected it, he went for it, and it worked. And then there you go. And yeah, good comment here from Adam. Says, I think there's a difference between sitting back and being organized and defending a lead. I agree. But I think to give Costa some credit, I think towards the end, maybe we're hanging on a bit more. But coming more with the dark arts, this is something that you particularly like, Duck. It turns out that Harry Winks doesn't just play for the Foxes, he plays for the Tigers, because here he is against Archie Gray. And he went for this rugby challenge. He got booked for it. But again, I think when you're up against it and you're just trying to get the points, I'm all for it. I think we need to use the dark arts more often.
It is beautiful, right? And I think that's the thing that was so deflating about the season we got relegated. The players wouldn't do this. They would just sit there and complain like the rich assholes they were. Like Harry Winks came in one season ago. He's playing against his childhood club here, right? And he is rugby tackling some piss random 18-year-old from Leeds into the ground to try and keep our lead, man. I love the guy. Love him. Love the work ethic. And that's the thing, I think, if we are going to stay up this season, it is players fighting tooth and nail to hold on to these results. No matter how ugly it gets or how many rugby tackles they have to make, they'll get it over the line.
Yeah, and well, that's what I agree. And so this is what I'm saying is that, like, I think that it's important. So many professional fouls and slowing the game down. It's great gamemanship all round. And yeah, I'm saying we need it, and I'm glad to see it. That was some side of the game that I don't think we've been showing enough this season. Stolarczyk, the same. He got booked in the end. How many times was he injured? As we said in the stats, he probably wasted 20 minutes from his fake injuries, but it slowed it down.
I saw a tweet today saying that he was so good at time wasting, he just left the Tottenham away dressing room today.
Perhaps so. There you go. And anyway, then, so that's more of it. So then I do want to talk about the subs. So that was the dark arts, but definitely what Ruud decided to do. And I'm sure a lot of people probably collectively crapped their pants when they saw this. For sure. So he decided near the end to put both Ollie Skip and Connor Cody on. And this is what he went for. He went for kind of a 5-3-2. You could even call it a 5-4-1, really. We decided to go 5 at the back, 3 in midfield, and sort of Daka. We see here's how we're defending. So we're not defending in a 4-4-2 anymore. We're defending in a 5-3-2. And so actually, that actually causes an advantage because now there isn't a man free on the wing because Victor can completely deal with him. We've got 3 in the middle. But of course, it means that you're not going to have so much threat going forward. So it's a 5-3-2 to see out the game. And then just sort of kind of final see it out. A change we made right towards the end was this guy. Yay! Woyu Koulibaly made his debut. He looks very nervous. I'm not surprised because if you make a mistake, it's going to cause some problems. But what did he do? Well, he actually, I think in classic Leicester City fashion, did something good, then something bad, but then did something good again, which is fair enough. So here he is on the side. And you can see him kind of defending here. But I think to be fair, this was probably the exciting thing. Yeah, I agree. I think Woyu did actually do quite good. Here we saw that he's got pace. And I've been saying for a long time, we need pace in this team. It's been mentioned already a few times in this with the transitions that he could do there. Steve, you even mentioned, what about moving JJ to centre back and having Woyu on the right-hand side? I've actually got to say, I'm a big fan of that idea because then that would give you between Justin and Woyu even more pace. And I think you've seen Justin's defensive stats. He's actually got better defensive stats than either Fass or Vestergaard. So I think you could have a balance. Something to think about. I'm not sure if Ruud will or won't do it, but I think there's certainly something for thought there, food for thought. So here we see Woyu, and you see with his pace, he's good. He manages to blitz his way through. But to be fair, he's here and he's probably thinking, lads, where are you? Like, literally, you can see that is the face of like, I've done well. I've beaten my man and I'm looking for the forward progressive pass. And he's like, there's absolutely no one in front of me. I'm the furthest forward player. So, of course, that means you want to recycle the ball, which makes sense. He's going to try and play it back to Fass, but he actually gets robbed because, look, Spurs, to be fair, they've pressed him. That's their high press. That's the system that they play, and they win the ball back. But again, because he's got pace, and here's the thing that I often think that pace is the cheat code, right? Because if you're fast, you can make a mistake, but you can recover. Kyle Walker did it for years. He would often miss the first challenge, but be fast enough to get back and win it again. And that's exactly what Woyu does here. So even though he makes a mistake, he's got the pace, he gets back and he wins the ball. And then to be fair, not only does he win the ball, but he actually plays it out of trouble and gets us some much needed respite. And we managed to recover it. So there you go. We did all right. And so that meant overall, boom, the game ended 2-1. A much needed win. Thank God we got it. We saw it out in the end. If you look at the stats, yeah, Spurs they didn't have too many shots. 15 shots in the end is not so much. So despite all their possession, they only had 6 shots on target. They didn't really make any big chances there in that second half. So I think we did well. So, here are my match thoughts then. So we finally got a win. Unbelievable. We played pretty well, but I do have to say, I feel like this is a game where Spurs beat themselves rather than us beating them. Like, I feel, as kind of been alluded to here, they just played into our hands. I mean, they were 1-0 up, by the way. Why did they keep attacking? They should have gone for the counter-attack themselves, but luckily Ange isn't a great manager. But I would say that if we were more confident, we could or should have won this game by more. I think at 2-1, you saw them absolutely rocking, and you could even tell it amongst our players that they knew that was the time to attack, but we couldn't quite pull it off. And I think we could have got to 3-1, and then I think it would have been game over. We need to get more clinical on transition. That's my kind of big thing, right? We're capable of making and generating chances, but our front line leaves a lot to be desired. So we're getting in sometimes, but we're making the wrong decision, or we're just not finishing it well enough. And if we don't do that, I think that's going to cause us problems, because Rudy is obviously trying to make us be a compact block and be good at transition, but we're not good on transition. We defended like our lives depending on it, and we need to have that attitude in every game going forwards from minute 1 to minute 99 if it goes that far. To stay up, we need certain players to emerge as heroes. El Khanous and Soumaré are the most likely at the moment. I think they're the ones that are being the most consistent. El Khanous, if he gets the goals and assists every game, that could help us. But do you know what? It's possible that even someone like a surprise hero will show up. Is it Bobby Reid, right? It has happened before. In the Great Escape season, Mark Albrighton came into the team and he made a massive difference. All of a sudden, his direct crossing meant that Vardy started getting goals. Robert Hoof, of course, was a big one in that season. Maybe it's Koulibaly. Maybe Vardy on his walking stick gets 5 goals between now and the end of the season, and that keeps us up. It honestly doesn't matter who it is, but we need winners. We need someone to do it. So let me just ask you about your match thoughts before I move on to the fixtures and where we leave in the table. What did you make of that game overall, Andreas? I
thought overall it was brilliant, right? It showed some of the characteristics that I've said multiple times in the show I needed if we want to stay up. I saw finally a bit more clinical. We were a bit more clinical in attack. Not clinical enough yet, as we saw in the many changes you highlighted, right? But in particular, we got that one very good cross in. We scored it. We got it in. And I mean, Khanous as well, clinical on the shot there to get his goal as well. So that was an improvement. And I really like to hear that they are focusing on finishing, right? Ruud coming into the press conference saying he's working with the players on the technique to finish better, be more clinical. So it's something they're focusing on, which I really like, especially if we don't manage to get a right winger in. I thought they defended kind of like in the West Ham game, right? With their lives on the line, doing everything they could. So I'm really, really happy. Dakim from Salzburg has been linked. I think it's Adam Dakim. Not ready from the Premier League, in my opinion, by any stretch of the imagination. But if we could get him on a cheap, and I think he's someone who, if we go down, could be useful. If we stay up, could be useful in a year's time. But it's not the kind of signing I would be screaming out for at this point. Regardless, though, my match thoughts are this is a foundation to build on. Not perfect, but it leaves me with some optimism, as well as the fact that we're coming into the period where the injuries are starting to slip up, or, hopefully come back in our favor, right? Boyu's coming in, showing something different. We saw Ricardo, you saw him send a picture in the group the other day with him training. Obviously, he's supposed to come back in March. It's still a month away, but maybe a bit earlier with him already in training. And Didi's training with the team again. He's going to be crucial defensively speaking. So those two things together, this win and the injuries hopefully ending soon and players coming back from them, that leaves me with some optimism, and I'm really, really happy with that.
Yeah, it's funny. I still don't think we've been particularly good. I think we were lucky. I wouldn't say we were lucky to win this game. I think we were lucky to play Spurs, if that makes sense, because it was a good team for us to play. Planet Earth said, if we're 4 points clear of relegation Saturday evening, does that give us the platform to bring in one quality player? I hope so, but the window actually ends on Thursday, doesn't it? So, or is it before that? When is it? Let me just check my calendar here. So I think we might need to get the signing in before that. If it is on a Saturday, perhaps you're right. I do think we need one more quality player. I think we will sign someone. Is it going to be the player that we want? I don't know. For example, we've actually been linked with that Strahinja Pavlovic. I think that would be a really good one because he's fast. He's left-footed.
But I don't think so. He sounds too expensive.
Is he? I mean, 20 million. I mean, if we can loan him with the obligation to buy if we stay up, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, I hope Rock can find a way, but I mean that's the worry, right? Rakin has to find a way, and that's where I'm not fully confident in whoever we have in charge. But I mean, I finally feel like I have something for my excitement and optimism to be rooted in that will give me a bit more hope. Obviously, things can change very quickly, and who knows? Bilal Al-Kanoush could get a career-ending injury tomorrow. Who knows in the training field? But luckily, or hopefully, soon it's hard, and you say in Denmark, that doesn't happen. Or touch wood, I think you say in England, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a week where everything went our way. That's how I want to phrase it. Even if, Everton could have lost, that would have been brilliant. But the teams below us lost, or the teams around us, really, the crucial ones. Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton, all lost. Even someone like Crystal Palace lost, right? That I heavily doubt will catch up to, especially with their recent good form. But yeah, I thought this was a very, very good weekend of football.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look at that. Despite losing 7 in a row out of the relegation zone, that's absurd. So we've got a chance. You've got to say there. KCK, get Kevin Danso. He would be amazing. Now, that's a very interesting player because he was supposed to, I believe, go to Roma in the summer. And apparently they found out he had like a irregular heartbeat, so the transfer got cancelled, and I think because of that teams are going to be a bit scared of signing him. But Leicester City and injury prone players name a more iconic duo. And speaking of, that's why we've also been linked with Tariq Lamptey, so you never know, it could be either of these players. I think we will bring in one player, maybe even two, but I think if
it could be two. I mean, we normally leave the business very late, right? And they can be effective, our transfer team, no doubt about it. I think the past few deadline days have been pretty exciting, except for the winter window, last window, where we spent a whole month talking about Stefano Sensi and never seeing him in the Leicester shirt. But yeah, I mean, finally something to be a bit optimistic about. And just look how few and far between the W's are down in this lower half of the table, right? Like, even if we draw to Everton or we hit a rough patch again, we've just been in the worst spell of this season, and one win was all it took to get us out of the relegation. So obviously our opponents are having easy game, and there are all these variables that you could put into the dialogue. But we are out of the bottom three after what was a horrible spell. And even if it was a shit Tottenham team, it's a big 6 team we beat. And I think that helps breed confidence as well. I think Ruud is doing the right things. Injuries are starting to seem to come to an end with Ndidi, and hopefully Hermansen as well, coming back sooner rather than later. I'm just happy, man. It's hard to hide my excitement. I'm for once feeling genuinely optimistic and feeling like I have something to believe in.
This guy would be a good player. That Nasser Jigger, I was checking him out in Football Manager earlier. Very tasty stats. Obviously, you can't take everything from there, but there you go. Let me just say, guys, thank you so much. I hope you did enjoy the analysis. If you do, please like this live stream. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel, Blue Tinted Glasses. We try, I don't know if you saw, but on Match of the Day and other channels, all they did was talk about how bad Spurs were. They didn't really, you wouldn't even know they were playing Leicester in some of these analyses, which I absolutely hate, which there you go. So yeah, please do both those things. And yeah, the transfer window, I mean, we need some people. How many points do you think we will need to stay up? That's an interesting one. I mean, the way it's going, I've actually heard Benjamin Bloom, I don't know if you've seen his channel. He says that according to his calculations, 29 points will be enough to stay up this season, which is crazy. KCK says 30.
Yeah, I think 33 is my current estimation. But
yeah,
worth remembering, I think we have a spell, and I think Wolves soon as well will have a spell where they're playing a lot of teams in and around them. And if the thing is, right, if one team just gets into, locks in and start beating everyone around them, they will acquire a lot of points, and that could quickly raise the bar. But if a lot of those games, then Wolves win against one of the teams around them, then lose to the other and draw to the next, there is a chance that it becomes a quite low point. There certainly is the possibility, just like last season. But I could also see a world where, one of the teams picks up a good amount of form and raises the bar for what you need to stay up, especially because we are 4 teams currently battling for one spot of survival. So eyes on Wolves and Ipswich really in my eyes.
Yeah, well, hopefully that team is us. At the moment, it's Everton. Let's see if we can drag them in. I think for us, the really big thing is that Wolves have been so bad this season. Spurs could get dragged in. Listen, the way that they were absolutely awful in that game, you've got to say that. I actually think, how bad were they? It ranked, I think, about as bad as some of our performances. I still tend to think that our home performance against Wolves you will struggle to see a worse performance from a team struggling to stay up in the league in a 6-pointer at home. But it wasn't too far away from that, I think. Spurs really did look quite poor. But with Wolves, their new manager bounce seems to have gone. Look, the big thing for us is we're playing Everton next, but then we've got to play at the end of the season Wolves, Ipswich, Southampton. We're playing West Ham again. We're playing Man United and Brentford again. So, I mean, we've got all those fixtures. I mean, to be fair...
What a world we're living in when we're saying, luckily we're playing Man United again in our relegation battle to try and stay up. I mean, some clubs are certainly in that banter era now, right? But I 100% agree. I think that's a key part as well. But that is also the reason I say I think this estimation of potentially 30 points could be somewhat accurate depending on how those games go. But there is a real possibility that either us, Ipswich, or Wolves lock in, beat everyone around them, and raises the bar to 35, 38, something.
Yeah. That's all possible. Or you might get some weird season where you stay up on 26 points or something crazy.
Yeah, because like everyone is destroying each other. I think that could happen as well. I think the key point for me that I think is crucial is Ipswich have started to look a bit clueless. They are trying to play around with the formation. It worked obviously against Chelsea, right, when they really just sat deep and dug in. But it feels like Kieran McKenna is experimenting with different things now to try and get points on the board, which obviously he could hit gold and they could start picking up points, but they look kind of headless at the moment. Wolves, after their immediate manager bounce, even with Matheus Cunha coming back, they look bland going forward. They are struggling to really create from the few bits and moments I've seen of them. I don't watch every game, I'll be honest, of Wolves, but I think they look to be in worse shape than us. Obviously, we have just gotten this win now, which is a win against a faltering Tottenham. But the fact that we have the injuries coming back, if we get one more signing on the board, but that's a variable. I don't know that. But just Ndidi coming back, Hermansen and Ricardo in the next month, all likely to come back. I think that will be key. And I think we're at the very least a team who, foundation-wise and tactically, I rate us the highest at this point, I'm going to be honest. Even if you say we don't have the best players, and I think it's a fair argument to make in the positions, I think we have the best tactics. That's just, plain and simple. That's how I'm going to say it, because I genuinely believe that. In terms of the teams, Wolves and Ipswich, especially after Ipswich started going away from what worked with them, because I thought that's what I didn't get about them starting to change and sit deep, because what they did before, they got points every now and then on the board, even against some bigger teams playing their style like they did. But quite clearly, they've lost their head, it feels like.
Yeah, someone asked, you can see last season, Forest stayed up on 32 points. They did have some points deductions, of course, though. That gives you like an idea. A point a game probably will be enough. But yeah, look, I would say the thing that kind of scares me a bit, though, is that Wolves are signing players. Like they are signing Kevin Danzo. They signed that Agbadu from Ream, I think it was. So I think the problem is that like if we end up going down by 2 points and Wolves finish above us, it'll be like, oh my God, why didn't you just do the obvious thing people were telling you to do, which is to sign a player in the transfer window?
I wholeheartedly agree, right? I'd love to see us sign a few players, but yeah, I think currently I'm feeling more optimistic because the other teams are in a downward spiral, in my opinion. Obviously, Wolves have just had some rough games. I'll be key to keep an eye on how they're doing this weekend, right? I'll look at who they're playing. Yeah, they have Aston Villa at home, and then actually they have Liverpool. So it will be quite a few weeks before they hit that easy spell of games in March. But yeah, I think the thing with Wolves is they're really lacking offensively, just like us. And if we can now find our spell in front of goal, that will be key. I mean, Wolves away at home to a 10-man Arsenal didn't score a single goal. And while, it's acceptable to concede goals to Arsenal, they didn't create much either, if I'm not wrong. And I mean, yeah, they look to struggle to score. Matheus Cunha has kind of fallen off after he got suspended. But they do have players who have the X factor in them. Cunha, Jürgen Strand Larsen. But I will also say, if Canush hits a golden spell, could be a season differential. If Jamie Vardy starts tapping in those goals again, could be a season defining. And all I'll say is it feels like every opportunity is open right now, and that's what makes me excited.
Yeah, well, we'll leave it there. But I would say the nice thing to know is that we do actually have a chance. I think, for the loss, this one again, you think if we can't even beat a terrible Spurs side, what chance do we have? Now, all of a sudden, we're going into the Everton game thinking maybe we will get something. So I'll tell you what, tomorrow at 7, we've got Foxes then. And then on Thursday, we're going to have the match preview where we talk about the Everton game. So do tune into that. But until then, thank you so much for watching. This has been Anil. Say goodbye from Andreas too.
Bye.
Have a good one, and we'll see you next time on Blue Tinted Glasses. Thank you. See you later. Bye-bye. Nice one. I would say you hit